All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the CoinRock Show. We have a special guest today. We're going to get going in a few moments here. Welcome, welcome. Let's give it a few moments for the virtual room to fill up, and we will be joined in a few moments by Kyle CoinRock. Let's share this in some of the groups. All right. And Kyle should be on any moment here. Give some social love here. Like, click on hearts, share it in the different groups that we have, that you have, especially powered by JeetBot today. As you can see on the lower right, you can see JeetBot. That's the brand new Telegram bot that we launched with Justin, Lucas, and CoinRock, of course. We have been building this for the last 4 months. We had a very successful soft launch 2 days ago. And if you haven't joined the community yet, you must join. It is the most profitable bot. It's something that we're super proud of sharing with the world. Literally several features that do not exist anywhere else because they come from the genius mind of Justin. He's a real trader in the trenches. So that's about JeetBot. We'll probably talk about JeetBot too in the coming over the coming hour. And let me see if Kyle is on. Should be good to go. So, welcome everyone to the CoinRock Show. What we'll do now is let me put you on the big screen here. And type in 1 if you can hear me well. Should be okay, but you never actually know. Yesterday we started off with a wrong mic input, but we should be good now. Let's flip this to mirror the screen, and we're good. We're good. How is everyone today? Welcome, welcome. Type in 1 if you can hear me clearly. Very bullish news today. I was at a private Solana event hosted by the local Solana super team. They call it, it's called a super team. It's basically the local Solana team, and it was amazing. Great event put together by Solana, and a lot of alpha during the event, a lot of real builders, good conversations, people who actually are doing things, making moves in the industry, whether it's on the VC side or on the building side. Good developers, and very, very bullish for CoinRock. I know you guys are here because of CoinRock and because of JeetBot. So, we are everywhere at the same time. We're here on live streams. We're at IRL events, and it was a very, very nice event. I will say high quality, which is not the case for every event that we get invited to. Some of the events are, some of the events are a bit lower quality. And so that's the truth when you go to these events, especially like we for some reason are on a lot of different mailing lists now. Get deal flow. When I started CoinRock with the idea of really building something with Caius, my partner at CoinRock, it's no one knew us, right? I mean, of course, I have a strong background in Web 2, Web 1 also, but Web 2 is really where I built my my name, my brand, my experience, and my success comes from Web 2, really. But in Web 3, when we came out with the idea about, or just over a year ago, to build CoinRock into, having a 10 to 20 year vision for CoinRock, everything was brand new, right? And so you're not in the deal flow, you're not on the deal flow list when you start out. Now we're on multiple mailing lists. I don't even have time to look at the mailing list, to be honest. Like I do get them. I'm in Telegram groups too. And so you get invited to a lot of events around the world, and some events are good. Some events are average. I would say the majority of the events are okay. But the events where you actually, there's few events where you actually get value, and you meet people who also are in the same mindset of building for the long term, especially in a space that is extremely that has a tendency of being definitely heavier on the extraction side than the value add. And so I will say it's if you've been bullish Solana, I can give you some alpha here that the people building on Solana, of course, we have 2 projects on Solana, but meeting people, more people building on Sol should give you, and I can tell you this, should be, you can be very bullish on what's being built on Sol. The level is much higher than many other L1s, and the vibes are also very good. There's actually some very, very good people building on Sol with their real identities, which I think is also something that's interesting and that needs to be said in crypto, because, you know, one of the conversations we had today, so this was like a lunch, right? One of the conversations was about the future of crypto, regulation, yes, but also the difference between Web3 and Web2. I can see Kyle is on. Give me a thumbs up, Kyle, if you're good on audio. Very good. We'll add you here. And you know, it's not easy to, so in any industry and any new industry, there's a lot of everything, right? When there's when you're in the middle of, when you're pre-regulation, there's a lot of potential. There's also a lot of scams, a lot of fraud. You've all seen those. You might follow them online. I think, you know, there's a lot of accounts that work actively to shed light on these frauds and scams. I think it's very bullish for the industry. I'm pro-regulation. I think if you actually want to build in this space for the long term, regulation is a net positive, and it's great for people who understand that, who are willing to adapt to that, and it's bearish and bad for the fraudsters and the scammers. So very bullish on Solana, very bullish on the way things are run. No chain is perfect, but I can say that, you know, seeing more and more people who are actively building on Sol, you know, this is some alpha for you guys. The space, the Solana ecosystem is very active, and this is beyond the meme coins. Like today we talked maybe 5 minutes about meme coins, but actually real projects, whether it's tokenization, whether it's DeFi, whether it's putting a lot on chain, basically. You know, so tokenization was probably one of the things, real world assets too, some of the things that we talked about the most, and also bringing value instead of extracting in the crypto space. So with that being said, let's get Kyle on stage. Let's see, we should be good to go here. And Kyle, let me know when you should be on now.
Mic test, check 1, 2.
You're good. You're good to go.
All right, great.
Welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Good to have you. Yeah. So we talked about this. We talked about you actually on the show with the episode yesterday with Will.
Oh yes.
You know, it's funny. I had no idea he was actually a professor in AI, which is, it's one of those things when you do these shows and you have conversations with people in crypto. It's always interesting to see what they did before or doing beside from crypto. So welcome to the show. I know you've watched these, so you know kind of what we do and how things roll.
Yeah.
Quick intro for Kyle. I mean, we met about just under a year ago through Lucas. So Lucas Demos, blockchain boy, who is a partner of several projects that CoinRock built and incubated. Of course, a partner at JeetBot. So we work very closely together with Lucas. And Kyle was introduced to us by Lucas. So Lucas was the bridge. And, you know, Kyle was very bullish on the vision that we had at CoinRock and the first project, which was Cyclics, where we built the casino. So, you know, he was a believer before there was anything. And I always, I love seeing that, because there's a lot of skepticism too, which is healthy. Skepticism is healthy, but Kyle was on with us from day one before there was anything built. So thank you for that publicly, and welcome. Let's talk about I'm curious to hear more. This is actually the first time that we actually connect. I think maybe we're on a call on an AMA in the past, but actually several. But this is the first time we actually have time to really connect. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. Yeah, I think it's the first time, so I'm very excited. Always good to catch up with people. So should be an interesting little show.
Yeah. So to get started, really, I'm curious to hear more about you and crypto, and what's your story basically getting into crypto, because I think that's always interesting.
Yeah, definitely. My story, at least the getting into part, I am one of those guys that has the classic story where they got into it very early and sold way too early because they didn't understand what everything was that they were holding on to.
Yeah.
The very first experience I had with crypto was one of my friends back in college was using Bitcoin for the Silk Road. He was buying nefarious things off there, and he was telling me that it acted kind of like a stock. He's like, yeah, the price goes up and down, up and down. I'm like, oh, this is intriguing to me. And like I said, I was in college and a broke college kid at that. And I had this Wells Fargo credit card, and I wish I would have screwed the bank on this one. But I maxed out a $1,200. That was my credit limit at the time. It was my first credit card. I maxed out that $1,200 credit card, and I received 200 Bitcoin. And this was at $6.
I was going to ask you, so what year was this?
It's well, I guess I don't remember exactly what year this was. Silk Road was still around, I believe, and I guess when it was
2013
around
was when it 2013
possibly.
Right, got shut down. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it was prior to that, possibly. I don't remember the exact year, but I do remember getting killed on the interest rates, and I was working at a small, like Bobcat or skid steer dealership, power washing these rentals that would come in, and I was basically just working to pay the interest on this,
on the card,
on the Bitcoin.
I'm actually looking up Bitcoins. You said $6.
Yeah.
$6 Bitcoin price. When was BTC at 6? Oof, this is probably 2010, 2012.
That would be about right, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And
so Bitcoin was what, $6 in 2012. Wow.
Okay, so yeah, it's been quite a long time, and so basically I saw this thing move up a little bit, and I took an opportunity to sell because I had to pay this credit card off, and it just, to me, it wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't, my friend had more of a like a utility driven purpose to own it. And actually, he ended up getting about 45 Bitcoin confiscated by the feds later on. But at that time, I ended up selling it back to the market and taking a very small profit. I didn't look back at crypto until like 2017, 2018. That's when it kind of hit my radar again. And that bull market, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. What's happening here?
What's funny is, we had Justin, so Default Trades, on the show last week for talked about his story, and of course about the Silk Road. What's interesting is there's always this theory of like, oh, if only I would have bought Bitcoin at 5, 10, 20 bucks. But the truth is, no one would have held up to the 10,000, let alone 100,000. I mean, the only people who would have held are those who probably lost it and then just found it. Human emotion. I'm sure that the majority of people, if not all, who bought early sold on the way up at some point. So the illusion of keeping everything that you had, that you know, when you were using and buying on the Silk Road is just an illusion. I think no one would have held for 10 years, 10 plus years.
I agree with that. I mean, it's going to be a very slim margin, probably less than 1% of people that actually followed through with holding throughout that entire decade, or the last couple decades, you know. So, yeah,
So,
it was an interesting time for me. And, you know, looking back, I probably would have just done the same thing.
yep.
There was no, you know, I didn't understand the technology back then. I didn't understand like just the overall general concept of, you know, its purpose and things like that.
I think it was. I mean, when you were using it on the Silk Road, until when did you use it? Did you just try, or did you just see the website get shut down at some point? Because I was in Estonia building a SaaS, so technology company, and I remember seeing the headline of Ross being arrested, the whole story of the, you know, the FBI or the cops coming in, literally taking him away from this computer. Like, that whole story was insane. And so the website then had the official government takedown notice and everything. So how did you find out about that episode?
So I never really knew that Ross was behind it until like years later, but I can remember when that happened, my friend that was like involved with it, and I had gone on the Silk Road quite a bit. And it was more just out of curiosity's sake to see what exactly was being bought and sold on there. Because let's face it, there's everything from like books to hardcore drugs to like really bad stuff. I mean, it was an open air marketplace on the dark web. And I can remember my buddy telling me something happened that led to his Bitcoin getting confiscated. And I believe it was right around 45 Bitcoin. And I can remember Silk Road getting shut down. And I remember going to the website just to see what it looked like. And there was like this big like Department of Justice.
I think it was DOJ or the FBI logo.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was like, this has been seized by whatever federal agency seized it. But yeah, I never, it wasn't until probably like within the last 5 years that I even knew that Ross was behind it. He was well into his sentence by then.
Yeah. I mean, I think that case now is coming back more into the public consciousness in a way, just because he got released. What was it, 2 weeks ago? I think, freed by pardon by Trump. I remember that whole story. I mean, one of the big UK publications, I believe maybe The Guardian or one of them, actually ran a very long article. You can probably still find it. 2013. This was like Q4 2013. And it was an amazing story. You know, illicit products online through the dark web, through Tor, the Onion browser, the Onion router, Bitcoin, of course, crypto. I think, unfortunately or fortunately, it was the first mainstream appearance of Bitcoin and crypto. You know, and of course the FBI. Did you look into the story behind, or the allegations and the theories and the stories of what happened with the moderators of the website? And it's a very murky story. Did you read into it?
No, I haven't. I've never really dug too deep into it, to be honest. I just know the general outline. Okay. Yeah, I'm probably going to do more research, and I've been very fascinated by Ross's story, to say the least.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that, I mean, from a law enforcement perspective, a lot of things that went, you know, very like the wrong way, to put it mildly. I mean, the investigation was botched. There were threats from multiple investigators in charge of the case that then got arrested too. It's a crazy story. Now it's in the public domain, so you can find a lot of stories and the full documents online. There's actually a really good podcast that covered everything factually. These are not theories; these are literally core documents. So you can find them, and it's pretty amazing. It's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is it is amazing. And you know what's really interesting about Ross and his sentence too, like you think about at least here in the United States, and I think that this is generally speaking for all the countries and governments around the world, is that people assume, or I think people would generally agree that there should not be a cruel and unusual punishment. When you start to look at the punishment that he got, a double life sentence plus what, 40 years or something crazy
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like he was out there hiring the hitmen or selling the drugs personally. It was just you could almost go and apply that same standard to like Facebook or Twitter or X for that matter. Of course, Mark Zuckerberg threw up Facebook. All these bad things that have happened on Facebook since its inception have, I can almost guarantee you, probably 100,000% worse than anything that ever happened on the Silk Road. But Zuck still has not gotten in any trouble or anything like that. So this double standard was applied to him in many ways. And, I do feel like he might have a case for some sort of cruel and unusual punishment suit or something like that. I would love to see him pursue that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, I'm sure you've watched, I mean, I'm sure the audience watches or sees at least all the headlines or the posters coming, and the shows on Netflix, right? True crime, all these kind of false confessions or just bad investigations that led to people going to jail for 10, 20 years on a false confession or just bad police work. So I think the public now is much more skeptical of those insane sentences. I mean, I think that looking at, and I think especially in the last few years in the States, seeing how mild murders or rapes have, like the sentences, how mild some of those sentences, have been very common now. You can see very common, like hundreds of these cases where it's where the crime actually is much worse than what the Silk Road was, and the the victim is dead or disabled and or traumatized for life, and the perpetrator gets 3 years in jail. It's insane. So I do think it's a very extreme. It's really, I think it has it has the mix of all the right or wrong ingredients, of course, depending on which side you are, if you're on the prosecution or the defense, to get this kind of like huge, like global story. The fact that this is at a time pre-social media, the fact that this was a headline in Europe for what was a San Francisco investigation, on a non-public website, like not on the www part of the internet, means that there was more than just wanting to put someone away. So it has all the ingredients of an amazing show, and I hope they actually make a real show, like a real documentary series about it. It deserves it.
I would love to see that. Yeah, and I think just to kind of add to like what you were saying, back in the day when this all went down 10 years ago, social media wasn't as dominant as it is today. And the shock and awe factor of cryptocurrency and the dark web was still, it was very relatively new to a lot of people, and they're scared of it too. So it made great headlines, and I feel like that just really amplified the overall punishment for that.
I think because crypto was also so. I mean, I definitely think that if this was a cash, like, hey, send money through the mail, cash through the mail, it would have not gotten anywhere close to the attention it got, just because crypto was still very. I mean, it was a great argument to be anti-crypto, and to take and to run those headlines about crypto being used for crime and all these bad things, right? So I think that the crypto side of it made the Silk Road episode just that much more interesting for the press and as a case, as a legal case too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It was a spectacle.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. So Silk Road, what happens next in your path? So nothing until 2017 in that first, I'd say, bigger bull run.
Right. That's exactly when I started to catch back on, and I had some friends telling me about it. And one of my friends actually went on to do very well. And I've spoken about this guy before. Really good guy. I don't want to dox him here, but he was basically getting lots of shares allocated to him through a major like Fortune 500 company that he was working for, and he would take these things and convert it right over to like Cardano and all these other meme coins and things like that during this time. And he was telling me about this, and I'm just going, man, this sounds my risk tolerance was fairly high. Didn't fit with what I was looking to invest in. Long story short, once the 2020, 2021 bull run came into effect, he turned like 80K into like 1.5 or 6 mil. Yep. And so then it wasn't until 2020 that I really dialed back in, especially when Bitcoin hit that dip of like $3,000 or $4,000. And I remember looking at my wife and I said, should we buy a Bitcoin? And of course I didn't. So then anyways, long story short, I started to try to get involved and better understand the technology.
Yep.
Going into that bull run, I was trading a lot during that bull run. And
this is 2020.
2020, 2021.
Yep.
Yep. And then that was how I kind of rediscovered it. And from there, it was very interesting.
So what made you more interested at that time versus 2013, 14? What clicked?
It was very accessible. It was very accessible. I can remember back when I first bought Bitcoin, I can remember I did not trust the stuff at all. I can remember that the exchange that I used, that I don't even remember what it was called. It might have been Mt. Gox for all I know.
Yeah.
But I can remember buying at first like $100 worth on that credit card, and I moved it into the account, and then I ended up waiting like a couple days, and to my surprise, it was still there. And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to move this back to my bank account and see if it works. To my surprise, the money floated back into my bank account. And so I was very skeptical back then, and the on and off ramps, it was very difficult. It was a little bit more complicated than it was today. And so fast forward to 2020, 2021, you got all these great applications, like Coinbase, you got crypto.com, Voyager, which was an extremely good app before they messed up. These are all just great platforms to buy and sell on. MEXC. So once I kind of discovered that, hey, these like exchanges are out there and they actually work pretty good, that's what really enticed me in as a trader to go down that road.
Did you mentioned 3K Bitcoin at 3K? Was that the COVID dip?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So 7K to 3K.
That was wild, man. And I mean, it's what it is. But so that was kind of like how I got into it, and then we're back into it at a high level, and then fast forward from there, I was on one of my friends, Crypto Wendy. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but she is
of her, yes, because I know that Lucas talks about.
That's Lucas's mom. Yep.
So I know. It's actually a very funny story. I know that in some of the groups, actually, people think that she's actually Lucas's mom. It's actually very funny.
I was one of them. I think I asked her. I said I think I asked her about Lucas being her son or something. She was like, "What are you talking about?" or something.
Yeah.
That was years ago.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so I ended up starting a YouTube channel around 2021 and kind of trying to build up my socials and things like that. I had kind of known Crypto Wendy through an acquaintance.
Mm-hmm.
And became friends with her, and I was fortunate enough that she had me on her show. So she would do these Friday shows, and it wasn't until then I met a gentleman in the ICP community that was also on that show called Bitcoin Renegade. And he was really instrumental into like getting me hooked into the ICP ecosystem. And so at a super high level, he was telling me like, hey, there's these things called community grants that exist within all these blockchains. So I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity. And then I looked at that chart and I was like, that thing looks terrible. Like I've got to really do my own research. Oh, dude.
Do you remember what time, like what month this was? 2021.
Yes. So this would have been January 2022 or December of 2021. Yep. Somewhere in that neighborhood.
It's a horrible looking chart.
Yes.
It's very bad. It's actually very bad.
Yes. And so what I ended up doing was I applied for one of the community grants with Definity. Yep. And I was going to do my own research because I was very skeptical about this. And all of a sudden, I realized that FTX had this tremendous hand in hosing not just ICP's token launch, but also the Ronin Network's token launch.
Yep.
And so once I found this out, and this was undiscovered at the time, I went ahead and published all the information I could on it via YouTube. And then I also just started using the tech that ICP provided. And I was blown away by it. From what I had experienced at that time, I was really dramatically blown away by.
So did you get the grant, or were you applying, like in the process of applying?
Yep. Okay. So after I kind of like was able to figure out that this wasn't a scam, I was like, oh, I'm like, this is some, good tech, as they call it. So then I kind of went all in.
GUD-TEK, of course.
Right. What's that?
GUD, good tech, TEK.
That's right. That's right. And so, so fast forward from there, I've just kind of been around and just growing my socials. I ended up meeting Lucas and met up with him in Zurich last year. Had some really nice talks. Yep. And so, from there, I just started networking. And really trying to not only grow the audience size of my socials, but also like the business ends that crypto offers.
Yep. What drew you to ICP? What was the idea or the hook?
I'm sorry.
What drew you to ICP? What was the hook that they threw to get you into the ecosystem? Was it the tech? Was it the people around? Like, what was it?
Yeah, at that time there was like there was a very small community. There was fart articles all over on this thing. It was honestly, I was sick of paying like all these crazy gas fees and waiting for long transactions, and ICP was just lightning quick, and it just worked. And I thought to myself, wow, this is decentralized cloud stuff. Yep. This could really hit off. And so, just using the applications, and I probably reviewed about 50 or to 100 different applications like on my YouTube channel that were in the ecosystem at that time. And it was just a very unique and interesting way to kind of get hooked into a community.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a huge launch, right? Of course, if you look at the chart, it's horrendous, but I mean, it was a massive launch.
Yes.
The price was, I think it peaked what, 600, 800? No,
Yeah.
500.
It depends on the exchange.
Yeah. No, I remember that. It was, and of course, FTX. What's your experience with FTX at the time?
I didn't trust Sam, and
Interesting.
I didn't trust him, but I trusted the product that they had.
Yeah.
I didn't think that they would be as bold to do something like this.
Yeah.
But when I was doing all my research, I researched like at least a half a dozen exchanges.
Yeah.
And well, actually, it was probably like maybe it was about half a dozen exchanges at the time. All of them that listed the perpetual futures tokens. And I noticed that his exchange, he was the very last one that I audited. And I noticed that he deployed futures trading, a week before the token even launched.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, this is strange. And then I went through and audited every single futures launch that all the other exchanges had done in the past, like 2 years prior, 3 years prior. And FTX is the only one doing this. And then I discovered that they host the Ronin network, Axie Infinity's bridge.
Yep.
And it's interesting because after that, I ended up connecting with BitBoy Crypto, Ben Armstrong.
Okay. That's funny.
And he wanted.
How? Like, was it through a mutual, or was it just gold?
I reached out to him because BitBoy had screwed, or excuse me, Sam Bankman had screwed BitBoy's political. BitBoy was trying to pass pro-crypto legislation.
Yep, I remember that.
And Sam basically came in and put a stop to that. And so BitBoy was pissed. And so he was the only other guy out there, I think, that didn't trust Sam other than like myself that I knew of.
Yep.
And so I sent him a rogue message at like 10 at night. And at this point in time, it was like I was at this point where I was fed up. I was frustrated. I was not going to pursue trying to, bring this information to light. But then I basically just fed him everything I had. And he went on to figure out that FTX went on to hose like another half a dozen to a dozen other projects that
projects that just dumped. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it was a terrible thing. So, it was interesting, but I had spoke out against Sam quite publicly, and I got heavily criticized for it, but was like, once the exchange collapsed, then everything was like vindicated.
Of course. It's always like that.
It was insane.
Hey, Matthias here, and if you're enjoying this and want access to even more alpha, early stage deals and opportunities, and also behind the scenes insights on the markets, hit the link in the description and make sure you're subscribed. It's free and it puts you ahead of the curve. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, I mean, what's funny is so coming from like a pure marketing background, right? I was always skeptical for very simple reasons. One, the story sold and the speed of growth did not make sense to me. From a very skeptical point of view, just didn't make sense. When you had guys like Armstrong and others who were in the Bitcoin community way before me or many, like the vast majority, right? Let's say those who are crazy enough to believe in Bitcoin in the early 2010s. He wasn't one of them, and so the size and the scale of the reach he built in 12 months. I've seen those before, and they never look good, and they never end well. So I was always skeptical. The story didn't make sense. The arbitrage story. I remember at the very beginning doing also some due diligence, like what's the backstory here? Because I'd been in crypto mildly active in crypto since 2017. Honestly, just bought Bitcoin in 2017 for the first time. Not really following because I was building Web2 businesses. I mean, you know my story now, but it just didn't make sense to me. Someone who comes in within a few weeks or months, he's on all the major news, like mainstream news publications. Makes no sense. There's no backstory. A lot of skepticism, even from TradFi guys who tried to look into him and got shot down by the PR team and everything. So it's like, all right, this doesn't, it makes no sense. It's like red flags all over. I didn't call him out publicly because I was still on at the time, but it just didn't make sense. When someone comes out of nowhere and within a few weeks or months starts calling the shots with no backstory, that's my whole point. It's like, there's nothing verifiable over the last 10 years. Like I have a different backstory, but you can go back and Google me and find YouTube videos from 15 years ago of me. So that's one thing. But being a trader in, I think he was a trader in one or two firms, Jane Street being one. It's not like he ran Goldman. Let's be honest. I mean, you know, he was not at the top of a major financial firm at the time, and yet he's directly competing with Binance overnight. So it was very interesting. I was always skeptical. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was too.
No one knew the fraud that was ongoing. That was, I think, mind-boggling for many, even major KOLs and major investors and backers. I mean, these are the smartest guys in the room, quote, right? That's and they got screwed over too. But I think the story just did not add up.
Yeah, it was a terrible, terrible outcome. And I hope that, you know, the crypto communities worldwide can just use this as like a lesson. When we see something like that pop up again, like everybody's bullshit meter better be like through the roof.
Yep.
You know, I can remember when I first kind of was looking into Sam, and, you know, you mentioned arbitrage, and, you know, he was doing some arbitrage between like the US and Japan markets. And,
yep,
you know, he was claiming to be making millions of dollars a day. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, was this really happening? Like,
yep,
you know, what was it that loose? I just, you know, I don't know. I don't.
Yep.
You know.
Exactly. It's does it really make sense when you take a step back? Of course, when you dress it up with being on TV and having, you know, being at the highest level of the Democrat donor list, it's, let's say it's all the investors. It looks good to the investors, right?
Yeah. He's
out there. He's campaigning pro crypto. He's building exchanges. He's moving to the Bahamas. I mean, it's easy to find to be a victim of your own confirmation bias and looking for clues. And there's some boxes that ticked. Yes. Why would Tom Brady be on stage with him? I think he had Bill Clinton in the Bahamas at that event, right? Some of the biggest names in the investment space backing him publicly. It's like, all right, are these guys, I mean, not all these guys can be wrong, right? I mean, they have to have done their due diligence. And so it's,
right.
You know, that's how it works.
Yeah, so. There's a snake in the grass that got through.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yes, and a lot of victims, unfortunately, major victims. And that's real money, not just from, you know, look, funds can write off a $50 million loss. Many can. You know, the retail trader who has $100,000 in it and it's 80% of his savings. Forget about risk management, but the reality is, in crypto, many people just overexpose themselves. It hurts. It hurts real lives. So.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I can remember, you know, Sam was behind a lot of different things, like especially, you know, Three Arrows Capital. He toppled them, which toppled Voyager Exchange, and I was kind of a semi-community member of the Voyager community. And I remember reaching out to some people after that thing collapsed because I knew quite a bit of people in that community. And I put out my email address if you need to talk. And there's like one person that was emailing me that they were, you know, going to unalive themselves because of what had happened. Yeah, and they never responded back. So you know, people, you know, I hate to say it, but people definitely paid the ultimate price at the hands of Sam.
there's real consequences, right? I mean, it's all fun and games if you trade $50 at a time, which is fine. But look, it's I remember the Voyager story very, very well. I bought the token. It actually, you know, what's funny is when you put Voyager side by side and you compare it to FTX, Voyager had actually a lot more going on for on the regulatory side. For example, they were publicly listed, which is a huge stamp of approval, right? Any investor, they were listed in Canada, right? I believe.
Yes, they
Yeah.
were on the TSE, I believe.
So, I mean, you expect the regulators to do their job, and so you expect the CEO who is still actually, last I checked, because I had. It's funny that I didn't know you had contacts during that whole story of crypto, because I also had good contacts at Voyager on
Oh,
so a common friend actually knows two guys who are actually on the marketing side of Voyager.
oh wow.
So I didn't have all the alpha, but I definitely heard more than what was in the groups,
Hmm.
and it was very disappointing. I think the CEO was he is last I checked, he was still. I don't think he settled with the SEC. Was it the DOJ or the SEC? That's something I know that, yeah. So Mashinsky went down, of course. Ehrlich came from E-Trade, which is also
Yes,
a stamp of approval, right? If
right.
you're an investor, he was in traditional finance. He unlike Sam, he didn't just appear out of nowhere. He actually had a proven track record. I think that was also what was
Yeah,
disappointing, right?
that
So,
was a major selling point, even for
yeah,
myself, to use um, that exchange. I
yep,
can remember once I heard about the first time. We always see these exchanges like right before they go under. They might do a temporary pause on like
yep.
withdrawals or something like that. Well, they did the same thing. They did a temporary pause on
I
withdrawals.
remember.
And I told everybody on X, I said, get all of your funds out.
Yep,
And man, people were just, I got slaughtered for saying that. 3 days later, the thing went under.
yep.
Crazy.
I remember that day. It's again, the issue with Voyager was very simple. The FDIC disclosure was literally a lie.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like it's I remember being on investor calls, and the I remember very clearly the CEO saying that the platform was FDIC
Yep.
backed or FDIC guaranteed.
Yep.
Those recordings are online. You can find them. And so
Yep.
when you find out that the two biggest loans Voyager gave were to two different parties that were not named, being 3 Hours Capital, there's a problem. There's a hole in that balance sheet.
Right.
And again, it's something you would expect from an offshore exchange or an offshore
Mhm.
entity that has no regulation. It's not something you expect from something that's in North America trading on the stock market. And I think it was extremely disappointing, especially seeing that there were major. Forget about KOLs, right? People talk about
Yeah.
crypto KOLs. No, there were mainstream celebrities, mainstream like tier one athletes pushing Voyager and being paid by Voyager. It was extremely disappointing to see literally the lie. And this is
Mhm.
all in court documents now, so it's all public domain.
Yeah.
Disappointing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what happened after that for you? So of course, crypto crashes after FTX, Luna, and everything. What did you were you active in communities, or what did you do?
Yeah. Yeah. So the two biggest communities, so I pushed through, bear market hit, and that was, once all that stuff collapsed, that was really the nasty bottom of the bear. And
Yep.
I continued to build. I kept making as many connections as I could. I kept making content and grinding, and I tried to just keep making better product. And so that ended up opening up a lot of doors. And I've done a lot of coverage on another blockchain called Nervos Network, CKB, over the last few years. And it's this grassroots layer 2 proof of work, which I love proof of work. I love running miners. I got a whole basement full of them. And so I really hit it off great with that community. And it's just a nice grassroots effort. They're still around today. They've been around for 7-8 years. And, I've gotten the opportunity to travel a lot because of crypto.
I see. You're always moving on Twitter. Yeah.
Yep. So I was able to fly out to Thailand for a couple of weeks. This might have been in 2023. Yeah, somewhere in there. Yep. And, got to meet the whole team, got to basically team build with these people. And they flew me out there because, I had done such a good job covering their project. I just genuinely believed in the project. So I covered it. And that was just a very unexpected gift that they did for me. And, from there, I've gone several places because of crypto. I have been over to Portugal filming a hackathon, the Monaco boot camp.
Yep.
I was over there this summer, and then I was over in Zurich, Switzerland early in the summer. I think it was May, and that's when I got to meet Lucas and a bunch of other.
Was Aaron there too, I believe?
Yeah, Aaron was there too, so got to connect with him. It was really good to get those face-to-face relationships. And, so through that time, I've just been kind of building and trying to make connections. And, people think a lot of people just see the tweets go out and they see the videos get made, but they don't see all the time invested building relationships, the overhead, just the time that goes into, I guess becoming a content creator or influencer. It wasn't really a priority for me. I wanted to engage with the space as much as possible.
Yep.
And so, it's been very rewarding.
What's your so I know so Lucas actually told me, this was probably a year ago, about the videos, the animation side of things.
Yes.
So tell us more about that.
Yes, I do love to animate, and I haven't animated in probably 6 months. I've just been too busy, and I'm just traveling and things like that. And so Wojak, which is kind of a crypto-centered investment meme character that usually gets rugged, or he makes billions of dollars. Usually something extreme bad or good happens to this character. And so I started creating these Wojak videos, and I've had a lot of fun with that. But some of these, a 4 or 5 minute video, that could take 80 hours of just animating, maybe 100 hours behind the scenes. And if anybody's interested in checking it out, you can go to Wojaking Off on YouTube.
Let me drop this in the Wojaking Off. That's actually a really good handle. It's actually
So I named it Wojaking Off, and I started the last video I did was, like I said, probably 6 months ago, and I integrated a lot of crypto projects and stuff into these videos to try to attempt to get some more exposure to them. I think I have CYG in there as well. I think CYG is.
I just posted the links here for everyone to follow you and check out Wojaking Off.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yep.
So I've kind of held off on that. I've been really trying to try to find a better way to animate, whether it's through Blender or some of those other professional tools versus just using Photoshop and Adobe Premiere Pro. It works, but it's a very painstaking process to bring one of these films to life.
Yep.
And it'll get 1,000 views or something, and I'm like, wow, I just put 100 hours into that, and my time could be spent better elsewhere.
Yep.
But I do plan on doing some more.
So what's the so you mentioned you mine, right? When did you start mining, and what clicked? Because you could have mined Bitcoin like all of us 10 years ago. I remember one of my lead devs in 2013 in Estonia. I tell the story all the time because it reminds me how painful it is to fade Bitcoin in 2013. He came up to me and he said, hey, I put together a PowerPoint presentation and we should mine Bitcoin. I had no idea, of course. I was like, no, it's Bitcoin has no future. Just go back to work and code.
Yeah.
And of course I was wrong, like many of us. And we could have all mined. So at the time you could have mined literally. So his plan was to allocate. So he said, let's take $50,000 from the budget, right? The company budget. So we're building a SaaS. And let's buy $25,000 worth of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was around $200, and then 25,000 of not even rigs, because you can mine with, computers. And no, I said no, and but we all could have done that. So, but then you got into mining. So, what drew you to mining after not doing it early?
So I never really, back in the day, could afford the hardware to mine. I mean, I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have any fancy like computers. I mean, back then when Bitcoin was new, like I didn't know about it, and I know you could mine with like your browser or whatever. Yeah. And so, of course, I didn't really know about that or understand how all that worked, and I couldn't afford a big heavy duty miner, and fast forward to like the 2020, 2021 bull run, I started mining, I started mining CKB, Dogecoin. I was mining, Filecoin?
Filecoin, yep.
Yep, Filecoin. And I was mining one other project. I don't even know if they're still around. I can't remember the name. And so I was doing that quite a bit, very heavy too. And, once the bear market hit, I mined a little bit into the bear market, but then it becomes more profitable just to buy the tokens outright.
Yeah.
Because the expenses to run the miners cost more than the crypto is actually worth that you're mining.
Yeah.
I had and I still might get into this next venture, depending on how well this next bull run plays out for me. Basically, one of my good friends' dads owned an internet service provider here in Minnesota, and dude is just loaded. He owns I'm talking like commercial buildings in major metropolitan areas with secure server rooms that have like a foot thick, steel doors on them.
Yep.
And so we've actually got access to loading up an entire floor with miners if we want, and running them. And so we've been kind of talking about the logistics of this. Unfortunately, this building is 100 miles away from either of us, but I'm thinking
Minnesota would be actually a good location just because of the weather, right? So
yeah, I mean, you could pipe cold air into a room, but it wouldn't take as much to keep these rooms cool. In the winter time, at least for half the year. So it's not a bad idea in the end, but we'll see what happens after this next bull market. I may pick up a ton of miners, and we might try.
There's going to be a lot of miners for sale anyway, right? When the market drops. So
yeah, definitely. That's definitely the time to buy, and really the time to sell some of these miners that are try to offload them Pico top
at peak.
And, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're making money, it just offload them. Yeah.
The efficiency also drops, right? So I think a lot of people don't know that too. So
halvings happen, and hash rates go way up. Yeah. So it's a game.
So the mining is more is secondary. What's your take on the market? Like what is interesting to you in this cycle, and what are you looking at?
Yeah, it's an interesting cycle so far. I feel like the AI presence in Web3 seems like to be an emerging narrative. I'm going to pay attention to that. I think like right now, as far as like where the prices are at and things like that for just the entire crypto markets in general, I feel like I was just telling this to somebody like the other day too. I feel exactly, maybe not exactly, or similar to January, February of 2021.
Yep.
Right before the markets just started ripping.
Oh, yeah.
And I just like for the last few months, I've kind of felt like this impending tension with the markets. And I do think that by this fall, we should see significant gains. And if we haven't, well, then there's something very wrong. Or we might just see some sort of delay in the bull run. I will say this, though. One thing that has me super bullish is that President Trump is a lot more pro-crypto this time around than he was before. At least he's placing a lot more emphasis, on this whole industry. I think the fact that he launched a meme coin shows a lot. He's got skin in the game now. And
Well, they're buying crypto almost every day, right?
Exactly.
They're buying a lot of crypto.
Right, exactly. And there's probably nobody more connected. Well, I'm sure there's probably more connected people, but there's probably a short number of people that are as connected to Wall Street as Trump is.
Yep.
And I feel like he realizes that this is his last term. This is possibly the unlimited money printer glitch for him.
Yep.
And I think that, we're only less than a month into his presidency. He's got the next 4 years to make it rain. And I do think that he will come through on that for sure. Yep. He's not going to miss that opportunity to make possibly billions of dollars. So, for a man like that to leave hundreds of millions or billions on the table is just not happening.
No, I mean, I agree 1000%. I think that I've said this for weeks now. I think short-term choppy, maybe bearish. I think that there was definitely a Trump spike before he came into office. Mm-hmm. December, I think was I mean, prices were just much better. It was a much more bullish phase for sure. I said this mid-December on the record. I said, choppy. I think Q1. I mean, this is what, February now. January was, everyone was waiting for January. I think that it would have been too easy and too obvious. The market has a way of bringing max pain to everyone, and then just ripping when you at the end of patience and everything. So, I think that people have no idea what's really going on behind the scenes if they don't follow the actual headlines and they look at the type of buyer buying crypto. These are not this is not retail buying crypto today. Like these people have to hold major, like the biggest funds in the world, more and more publicly listed companies. Now there's pension funds, of course, sovereign wealth funds that are looking at this, not just looking. I mean, some of them actually have bought Bitcoin. Regulation, of course, is changing. I think that, there's a saying that this time different, or is just like the same cycle over and over again. I've said this for months now. This time is actually different. Please show me once in the history of crypto and Bitcoin a U.S. president being pro-crypto and buying crypto, bringing on a pro-crypto administration, regulation being pro-crypto for clarity. It has never happened. You've never seen funds like BlackRock buying crypto almost every single day. So yes, this time is different. Now, where does it go? We'll see. But it actually is different. The previous cycle, BlackRock wasn't here yet, right? There was mild institutional interest. I'd say the main institutional interest was and purchases were from mid-level hedge funds. I have friends who work in TradFi in London. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the big hedge funds or the big investment funds buying Bitcoin at the time. If they did, they traded it openly, right? So they came in pre-COVID, they sold and made good money, but this time is different.
Yeah.
Where does it go? We'll see. But this actually is different. The players this cycle are very different to the players in previous cycles.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that, like, when we are looking for the catalyst to jumping into a full-blown bull run, this is just my opinion. A few things that we can look out for as, just retail is the fact that, countries start adopting it more and more. Also, there is a tremendous race by all these hedge funds and firms like BlackRock to not only acquire as much crypto as they can, but the real bull market will come once they have gotten to a point where they have acquired and they start marketing their crypto financial services. That is when, in my opinion, the true bull run will happen, because they're going to be marketing their bags, which will by default pump our bags.
Yep.
So I don't know. And we've never seen the temperature of this room like this in the cryptoverse. Like you said, it is different this time. 100% agree with that.
BlackRock's not going to buy the meme coins, right? Or let's call them the lower tier meme coins. They might buy the main ones. You never know. I mean, there is talk now about buying, the top meme coins being in an index of some sort. I think that might happen because, I mean, you can see multiple meme coins being and staying in the top 50, top 100. That being said, the type of buyer is very different this time around, and that's gonna bring a lot of price action. There's also something. This is where having either connections in traditional finance or a background in TradFi helps. If you can study the history of TradFi over the last 50, 60 years, you'll see that these things happen, right? New industries, there's a lot of speculation. Early adopters make a lot of money, and then the big boys come to town. The big boys are, the industry shapers, right? The BlackRocks of the world, who advise governments, and the purchasing power is very different. And so, of course, it brings opportunity, but also volatility will definitely dampen at some point because they're not going to be trading in and out every day. But it is part of the next wave and the next phase of crypto, which is the holder type has changed this cycle and will keep changing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different dynamic all around.
Yep. All right. Last few minutes here. Is there anything you want to say, to share? Where can people find you? What's your what's your closing statement?
Yeah, I guess if I had to say something to the people out there, it would be this: make sure you use JeetBot for all your Solana trading. Make sure you check out Cyclics games, Vault Finance.
Just so everyone, for those who don't know, these are all CoinRock projects. So
right,
CoinRock incubated, funded, built by CoinRock. So yes, you can see. What is it? You can see JeetBot here. We'll drop the link in the chat here. But yes, it's thank you for that. I wasn't waiting for that. Just because when it's your projects, it's always I say this very openly. When it's your own project, of course you're always biased because you built it. It's your baby in a way. But also, yes, JeetBot is an amazing product, and the Telegram bot is just step one, and you're in. If you guys haven't used JeetBot yet, we'll drop the link here. Actually, let me just drop the link myself. Thank you for that. I mean, the team has worked very hard for the last 4 months, and the soft launch went very well. It was very interesting to see the interest was insane.
Mhm.
You know, I have to always preface, because sometimes there's this weird thing when you build things. It's very easy for the public to say, well, yeah, of course you're going to show it. It's your product. Yes. But also I have to, I like being very objective and almost neutral. I will say that the very, in a very humble way, the interest and the volume we saw during the soft launch a couple of days ago was much higher than we thought. And you can ask Lucas; he'll say the same thing. It's great. It's the biggest compliment you could have when people are fighting to get in, and there's, you know, bottlenecks and it's overloaded. It's a compliment, and
Yeah.
you know, it's just the beginning of that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited to see what you guys, do from here, and be a part of the continued success. It's really amazing.
Yeah. So what's happening now on the inside, some alpha here for everyone on the JeetBot side. Let me just have a look. Basically, the team's been almost. They have to sleep too, so I'd say 24 would be a bit of an exaggeration, 24/7. But I'd say a good 18 hours a day over the last 10 days. Now adding more capacity, which actually was done just right before this call. So more capacity on the sign up side. Just allowing more people to come in, which is it's always the challenge. You build a front door, and then you need a bigger front door. It's a good problem to have. So that's done. There's a lot of optimization just on the capacity. That is the main thing. It's always the main thing when you launch these projects, or in this case, it's a product. There's no coin. There will be a pre-sale in the coming weeks at some point, of course. You can farm the airdrop now through social media activity, through trading volume. But it is a product. The product is final. You can use it. You've seen the P&L shots in the group. So it's and when you build in technology, it's never over. There is never a point where you're finished with the product. You're always optimizing. You're always adding new features. There's new features coming up there's going to be new features added all the time, especially when we move to Discord. And I'd say especially when we move to the actual web app, because the web app just gives you a lot more real estate on the computer to add features. So yeah, it's a lot of work. It's also been interesting to see the competition and get some alpha on how they're seeing, and it's always good to see the competition freaking out a bit. So I smile because that's the game, right? I mean, if we're coming after market share, and we want JeetBot to win, we want the community to be happy, and everything to work out for the best. There's definitely people who are not happy with us coming into the space and moving very aggressively. So, but that's it's part of the game. We love the game. We love to win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, thank you for joining us, Kyle. I mean, everyone should follow Kyle here. I think I dropped the link. Yeah, so it's on X. It's RealSixFig. There's a running joke in one of the groups, which is like soon to be 7 figs, or at least 7 figs. I think Reliable in one of the groups said soon to be 8 figs.
I hope so.
Thank you for joining. Everyone should follow RealSixFigs. So Kyle, thank you.
Thank you.
You'll see Kyle in several communities of CoinRock projects. So Cyclics Games, which is the casino that we built in 2024. A lot of news coming up in the coming week or so for Cyclics. I literally just got a DM from our lead dev, and we announced the lottery. We actually announced the lottery about a week ago. So that's happening in the coming days. We'll do a full AMA in the coming probably week or so about Cyclics specifically, a lot of news. We have the lottery dropping, so it's a Powerball lottery. And we have another game that we're building, which to me personally is probably the most exciting game that we're doing in the casino. So there's news for that. And then, of course, JeetBot and VaultFi. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kyle. And we'll definitely have you back on the show. Thanks, everyone.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you got value from this episode, you're going to love what's coming next. So subscribe now. We drop new episodes and videos several times a week featuring power players, market movers, and insiders from the financial world. And if you want access to deals and insights we only share privately, hit the links in the description and we'll see you on the next show.